I recently ended up watching a show called Brand New Animal, courtesy of a really odd meme about furries I saw on Twitter. I didn't know the show was out, mostly because I don't watch Netflix on the regular. And I did watch it in full, and I have some feelings which I think are important to me, so I will share them with you. Rules are as normal for my little rambles. It's my opinion. If I rate the show, it will be given a rating out of 10. I'm not a huge weeb, so don't expect detailed information necessarily, and assume spoilers. So here we go. Brand New Animal is a Studio Trigger production, which was licensed on Netflix. And straight away when you hear Studio Trigger, you have certain expectations of how the show is going to look, and how the show is going to feel, and how it's going to be animated. And that's how it is. It's a Studio Trigger animation. Like it's active and it's lively. The main protagonist is a girl called Michiru, who is a tanuki, and she moves to Anima City at the very start of the show to take refuge from general racial issues because she is a beast man. And beast men are secondary citizens and are effectively ostracized to this one location and have to have a whole load of political problems. What beastmen actually are is a secondary branch of human. So they're rooted in human genetics, but they're not humans. If that sounds ridiculous, that's fine. It's the dumbest explanation that you could possibly have, and I'll complain about that later. And they can morph into anthropomorphized animal forms, and there's a whole thing where they explain that with diagrams, and it's not needed, personally. But yeah, so she has suddenly become one, and goes to Anima City after spending, I think, about a year in hiding in her own home. Michiru, as a main character, is very endearing and very enjoyable to watch, and she's just a lot of fun. So that's one really nice element about the show that's worth bearing in mind. Michiru also has a tendency to, as an individual, get involved in other people's business, which provides a surprising amount of plot drive. So, you follow Michiru throughout the story. It's very fun. She herself makes the show fun, and that's important. Alongside Michiru is Shiro, who is a stoic wolf. And he's a very dry contrast to our Tanuki lead, and does a lot of the legwork in fights as well. He is quite a bit of fun in his delivery of just his existence, right? So he's very stern and cold, but flies off the handle on a number of occasions, and he's also similarly fun to observe. The supporting characters are in general a lot of fun. None of them are particularly infuriating. I just wish some of them had a bit more screen time or explanation. And it's quite interesting to see how the designers chose to represent certain animals in human forms, because some of them, I don't think they all work out the same quality, but it's all fine. Obviously, when we're talking about Trigger, you end up talking about action sequences. They are really dynamic and very well put together. But it's Trigger, right? So you expect that. Even when the plot for me was lagging and I was not very invested in the story, the action sequences made up for it quite a lot. So that's very much to the show's credit. Visually, Brand New Animals is enjoyable, highly appealing, and it's pretty much what you expect from Trigger. It's a Trigger production. I mean, what else is there to say, really? Story-wise, the show is fine. Michiru wants to understand why she's gone through the changes she has, and gets slowly more involved in events within Anima City, and it ramps up through that. She's tied to these events as well, and it's more than just she's kind of attached to it. She is directly involved, unbeknownst to her. It's well tied together, and there aren't any unresolved elements that needed expansion or further explanation, and it works. It does the job, It's a solid story that carries a nice idea. The side stories are really cool. They provide a lot of exposition on the political issues surrounding the whole Anima City elements. And they also serve to divert you away from who the main antagonist actually is, because that's not something they directly state until way later. And those seeds of doubt about various motivations, it's good work on the writer's part, and it helps maintain a certain level of mystery in an otherwise straightforward main plot. Some of the plot elements did seem overly superfluous, and the final revelation of the show seems overly forced just to have a climactic final battle, which in my mind undercut the charm of the main antagonist as a manipulator character. The antagonist's motivation seemed very well established by that point, in the form of profit and power. The idea being, if they resolve the Beastman crisis, they can export that to other countries, and it's profitable and it suits them well. But nah, it was just eugenics. I would like to take a minute to complain about one key detail about the show, which is the medical subtext to a lot of it. It really is fine if you want to have a story with serums, vaccines, and all kind of other pseudo scientific elements that do things and are a vessel for storyline elements. Such as, for example, Beastmen having this special DNA that makes them Beastmen. It doesn't explain at all how any of the morphing works, which is fine. It's just whatever. But, and this is really, really important, if you're going to have a dog laser fight, please just call it magic. Don't bother with the science. It doesn't need to be there. It wasn't believable, and bad science fantasy is pretty tiresome at this point. Ultimately, Brand New Animal is an easy watch, and definitely worth it if you have a slot on your watch list, but it's in no way essential. Characters are endearing and it's visually pleasing. Story-wise, it's a fun fantasy that is easy to consume, which I feel is a weakness. Instead of delving into the darker side of social disparity and the issues of cultural ostracization, it chooses to devolve itself into basically an action magic climax finish, merely brushing against some of the more important modern topics which it had set itself up to address. Ultimately, BNA is a solid 7.5 out of 10,